what I felt like doing today, so hopefully you'll bear with me here. And ultimately the point of these videos is relaxation anyway, right? So hopefully it's not an issue, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the off season that my Portland Trail Blazers have been having, because we've been in a bit of this weird patch since trading away Damian Lillard. I felt like the team did not really have a solid identity, and we've kind of been in this position of trying to figure out what is what and all that, and the young players that we have and all of that, and who's going to be the guy if there is a guy, all of that. So to start with, I want to talk about the trade that happened to start our off season, and that is we traded Anthony Simons as well as 2 future second-round picks to the Boston Celtics for Jrue Holiday. Now, overall, my opinion on this is that this is a bad move. I think I was likely a bigger fan of Anthony than many in the fan base had become in recent years. I think that he was our most consistent shooting and scoring option on the team. I feel like he was our most prolific bucket getter, so to speak. And I remember when he was drafted, Dame had been talking about, by the time I'm old and sitting on the end of the bench, this is going to be the guy that's, leading the team to a championship or something along those lines. And I was always really high on Anthony. I actually have a signed Anthony Simons jersey from back in his rookie year when he was wearing number 24. Now I know that a lot of people had sort of cooled on him over the last couple years. People thought they had not been reaching that potential that many people did see him ultimately. I still do think that he does have room to improve and get better. He is never going to be a good defender. He's always going to be a shoot first, score first type of guy. But you always need that type of guy on your team. And it feels like, especially in this situation where we get back Jrue Holiday, who is old. I think he's, mid-30s at this point, and he's making more than $30 million a year over the next 3 years. I just don't see what the idea is there for the Blazers. If the idea is to, free up a guard position to allow Scoot and Sharp to start and play more, bringing in a veteran point guard who's going to be demanding to start doesn't really make sense. Because there's just no way you're going to be having a guy who makes that much money coming off the bench. It's just not going to happen. So you're right back in the position where you were, where Sharp is going to be, at best a 6-man. And I just don't really see it. And also, you're helping the Celtics out and basically making them better in the process. They get to get rid of Jrue Holiday, who's a big contract and an old player, and they get a younger player, a better scorer. And especially now that Jason Tatum is going to be out for all of next season, Anthony Simons is going to basically be the primary scoring option on that team. He'll probably be averaging like 25 points per game this season. And the Blazers not only gave him up just for Jrue Holiday, but we threw in 2 second-round picks for good measure. I just don't really see where the value was in that trade for us. And I've seen some Blazers fans sort of supporting the trade, or thinking it was a good trade or whatever, but I think even if you want to get rid of Anthony, the trade itself doesn't particularly make very much sense. Also, at this point in his career, Jrue Holiday cannot really play point guard least not in a starting fashion. He was unable to beat out either Peyton Pritchard or Drew Holiday for that starting point guard spot when Derek White was hurt. And it's like, I just don't understand why we're bringing this guy in. He doesn't fit the current timeline of the team either. It's an entire team of young talent outside of Jeremy Grant, and then we kind of brought in somebody on Grant's timeline who isn't our main player we're building around. Instead of bringing in a guy off the Scoot Sharp's timeline, Klingan's timeline. I just don't really understand the thought process there. And I think ultimately it's a bad trade, and I think the people that are trying to talk themselves into thinking it's a good trade have no idea what they're talking about. Let's fast forward a little bit to the draft in the Blazers. I believe we had the 11th pick or 12th pick, and we ended up drafting Cedric Coward with that pick. 6'6" guard wing from Washington State. And then we ended up trading that draft rights, that pick, to the Memphis Grizzlies for the Orlando Magic's 2028 first round pick. I believe that's unprotected. Or 2028, that could be a decent pick, 15, 16 range potentially. 2 second round picks. So again, we gave up 2 second round picks to get those back. And then the 16th overall pick, and with the 16th overall pick, we drafted, now, I heard a lot of people saying Yang Hansen, but I believe it's actually Young. I know it's with Chinese pronunciation. I don't think it's especially Young, but there's sort of like an H-O-U in there. It's like Young, I don't know, Hansen. But I'm just gonna say Hansen from this point forward. Just turned 20 years old. We drafted him out of the Chinese Basketball Association. He played for the Qingdao Eagles, I believe is who he played for. Qingdao Eagles from the CBA. And he averaged 16.2 points, 10 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 0.9 steals, 2.7 blocks, 60% from the field, 29% from 3, 68% from free throw. And I think he's the highest or second highest ever player drafted out of the CBA. Because I think Yao was drafted out of the CBA, but Yao would have been drafted higher, right? Yao was selected first. Wow, I didn't realize he was selected first. And he was from the Shanghai Sharks, okay. So yeah, no, not the highest then. And at first I didn't like the pickup. I've kind of come around on it a little bit the more I've sort of looked at it, so it really seems like we had keyed in on this guy really early. So there's this story on July 13th, 2024, so this is like almost a year ago. The Trailblazers reached out to the Chinese men's basketball team to set up a private closed-door scrimmage. They didn't release the game stats, and they specifically matched up Donovan Klingan against Young Hansen. And I genuinely believe that this is like a career-defining move for Schmitz. I think he's sort of realizing that for the Blazers to contend, Portland has never been a franchise that free agents have gone to, it's always been a lower tier destination. And so I sort of like these lottery ticket moves that he's making. And I know there's questions about fit with Klingan, and people are thinking, oh, we're going to trade Ayton. I don't think we're going to trade Ayton. I think Ayton is mostly untradeable. And we're going to have a glut of centers. Duop Breathe will probably be gone. Robert Williams will likely be gone. But I think we're going to be running Ayton and Klingan and Hansen. And I think Hansen is going to not get that much run this year. Again, he's only 20. But he kind of gives me Sengun vibes. People keep calling him Chinese Jokic. That's way. I mean, even Sengun has really high expectations. Calling him Chinese Jokic, I think, is even higher expectations than that. But I think this is the sort of move where you have to. I understand the approach from the front office. They're trying to get a Giannis, they're trying to get a Jokic, instead of just going for the guy that, he was a one-year college player, and he'll probably elevate our floor a little bit, but he can't elevate our ceiling, and you're not going to win a title with that guy, because it's true. I mean, a lot of the guys drafted in that 10+ish range, where the Blazers were drafting at, they're not guys that win you championships. I genuinely think in this draft there's only one guy who is a clear cut. You can look at him, and that guy by himself can elevate a team to becoming a championship team. And I think that's Cooper Flag. So what they were trying to do here is I think they're trying to identify a guy that nobody else has identified, and the fact that, I don't know, he's not the GM, but I don't remember exactly what his role is, but he set up at the scrimmage, and he's been high on Hansen for seemingly over a year now. He's been keeping an eye on him since he was really young. And NBA teams still aren't really scouting in China that much, because it is a weaker league, so I think overall it can be a little bit harder to determine who is and isn't good in that league. Because you had Stephon Marbury dominating that league for years and years. So you kind of get this idea of like, okay, well, if guys like that can go off and we know they're not good NBA players, then how do you really evaluate the young talent there? And it is tricky. Because NBA teams really now just starting to come around on like the Australian League and some of the smaller European leagues. Because like you see a player drafted from Real Madrid or Partizan or Panathinaikos, like those big powerhouse European teams. That's all kind of like low-hanging fruit at this point. Like everybody knows about those teams, but who's going and watching Alba Berlin games, or who's going and watching second-tier Polish games and trying to find players there. And if you can be the only team that's keyed in on these guys, if they hit, then like that's sort of your lottery ticket. And I know that there's been talk about like, why did we draft him so high? Because we did trade down and get some assets back to draft him here. But from what I heard, I don't know if this is true, but from what I heard at who is it, at 22, I think both at 22 and at 23, the Hawks and Pelicans, apparently both the Hawks and the Pelicans were keeping an eye on Young Henson as well. I don't know if that's true. I think that's just sort of a rumor that I was seeing circulated around on social media. So we thought, like, okay, this is as comfortable as we feel trading down to get this guy. And we think we can get him here. And then also what the Blazers did is they brought in Caleb Love, who went undrafted. Love was sort of just a big chucker in college. Sort of a very prolific shooter, but he can be a chucker when his shot isn't falling. Like, he'll still shoot even if he's not making shots. And I kind of see him as a potential, like, low-cost Anthony replacement. Like, okay, this guy can just come and be a scorer. And apparently Carmelo Anthony said Caleb Love was one of his favorite guys in this draft class. And like I've said many times, Carmelo is my favorite player of all time. And having a guy with that short memory who doesn't remember his misses, who is not afraid to keep shooting even if he's cold, that can hurt a team. But if you can find a way to utilize that skill set and, like, you know, just use it when it's necessary, I think it can be a beneficial thing. I know it's not like a perfect one-to-one comparison, but watching the Stanley Cup Finals this season, there were moments that because McDavid wasn't really able to score goals, it looked like many times he was trying to look for passes when he could have just shot the puck, because he was sort of in his head thinking, well, I'm not going to get a goal if I shoot, so I'll set somebody else up. This guy, Caleb Love, he doesn't care if his shot isn't falling, he's going to keep chucking. And I think there can be some value to that if you can rein that guy in, or only use him in certain circumstances. Ultimately, this guy will probably just end up being like a G League demon, tearing up the Rip City remix, getting a handful of games when, you know, people are hurt or whatever. But I think there's some interesting things there. And then we'll see what we have to do the rest of this offseason. Like I said, I think Robert Williams III will be gone. Let's see, $14.3 million before the first apron. Matisse Thybulle, Robert Williams III, $208, and they're all expiring. Shaden Sharp and Damani Kamara need a contract, and the rumor at the moment is that Damani Kamara has a handshake deal in place for a 4-year, $105 million contract. And I think that's definitely worth it. That's $26.5 million a year. He's an all-defensive team selection, and it'll be his 3rd year in the league, so I think that's definitely fair. And I think I'd be happy to have him there on that deal 4 more years. I think by the end of that deal, you'll really have a good idea of who he is as a player. But Shaden Sharp, I still feel like we don't really know who he is. And unfortunately, I feel like with the Drew Holiday deal, this next season we really won't get to know who he is, because looking at our squad, like, Scoot's got to start at this point. I think Drew Holiday will be our starting 2. And then you'll have some combination of Kamara, Grant, and Avdia at the 3 and the 4. I think probably because of Grant's contract, he'll be starting more than Avdia, unfortunately. Then I think Aiden will be starting at the 5. And that'll be, at least until the trade deadline, some of those moves might happen. And I think coming off the bench, whoever is sitting between Kamara and Avdia will get the lion's share. They'll get the most minutes coming off the bench. I think behind them, Sharp will be getting a lot of minutes. But yeah, I don't know. I just still don't see that Sharp will be a starter this next coming season. But and then Klingan behind that, and I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. And then Hansen, I imagine will probably be averaging less than 10 minutes a game. I don't think he'll be playing that much. At least maybe not till after the trade deadline. We'll see. I don't know. I made a comment saying I think this might be a play-in team this year. I'm not not that confident. I think our ceiling is the 10th seed. But we'll see, because I feel like a lot of teams, some teams around us got worse, but our teams around us got better. But I think our ceiling is the 10th seed this season. Anyways, I'll probably do some more general draft and free agency type stuff as free agency goes on. I know I didn't do draft recaps, like just overall NBA and NHL draft recaps. I've just haven't been feeling good the last few days. Now it kind of feels like the moment has passed. But when I do like some off-season like moves videos talking about that sort of stuff, I might just do some general, like, this team had a good draft, they added these players, etc., etc. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this every single week. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.